The $1 million question is magic and art.
Is magic, and of course magic's an art. Next question.
I'm not sure that's the right inquiry.
And I'm going to say no.
It's all mirrors. It's all mirrors.
Of course, magic is hard, because the magic play with a lot of concept of the art. The magic play with colors, play with music, play with dance, play with a lot of art in only one art. The magic, of course, is art.
It's almost like defining what love is. It's like so difficult to explain. I don't think there's one answer to it. I think it could be art, absolutely. I think every form that you can use to express yourself, if it's used right, is art. I mean, there are painters who paint and they're not artists, and there are people who sculpt and they're not artists. And the same applies to magic. Magic could be art, yes, I believe that.
It should be. It is to me. It is to most of my friends, you know. At least I treat it that way. Whether the public perceives it as art or not is up to them. But you know, if you're serious about it and you approach it, you know, take it as art, then yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely an art, and a creative art. And you know, there's that old joke about it being the second oldest profession in the world, and I think it's probably a true story.
When you ask, is magic an art? Again, I have to say, are we talking inherently an art? Because if you are, no. It is a collection of techniques and practices and processes and things that we do. It becomes an art when we do something for somebody, and instead of going, wow, that's neat, they sit there and they say, oh my God. And then you realize that something's happened in their mind or with their emotions, that they feel different now than they did 30 seconds before. Then you've reached something of an artistic level.
Once you say, yes, it can be an art, then you have to acknowledge the existence of, I think, good art versus bad art, okay? And then where's the distinction, you know? I think whether it's an art or not depends on your intent. And I'm by no means a scholar of art, you know, either philosophically or in practice, but it seems to me art is something that someone who thinks they are an artist does. And so if you think you're an artist, then you are going to believe you're producing art. And if you don't, you don't. And that's, I think, the useful distinction between our birthday party magicians and our higher end, you know, convention contest winners.
When you look at it honestly, I think most magic isn't an art. At best, it's pornography. And I think the worst are the people that call themselves artists and insist on telling me that what they do is an art. Because if you have to tell me that what you're doing is an art and that you're an artist, it probably isn't, and you probably aren't.
I believe magic is a craft. However, some magicians are artists.
Craft to me is something that's done at with a level of knowledge and skill, but that's not done as something of self-expression, right? And it transforms into art when it's used to express something about the artist, the practitioner's inner life or point of view or ideas, or something about his view of the world and his place in the world. And when magic is used to express something personal about the person doing magic, then it takes on all of the implications of art. And when you just do tricks for your friends at a party, it's probably not art. Doesn't mean it isn't fun, doesn't mean it isn't good, but that, to me, there's a distinction between art, expressiveness, and craft, which is doing something well. And then, you know, hobbyists in magic who just do magic, sometimes not even well, but for their own fun, that's probably not an art.
Most magicians are not artists. They're hobbyists or professionals. However, some magicians, regardless of whether they're hobbyists or professionals, raise magic and the performance of magic and the creation of magic to an artistic level.
I guess it depends really on your definition of what art is. A lot of times, you know, I've seen in the art museums, I have trouble looking at some of Picasso's work and actually considering that a work of art. But if you've ever seen certain magicians like Johnny Thompson or Del Rey, these guys are just masters at what they do. So yes, I think that in rare circumstances that, that magic is certainly an art.
I think that magicians do their best to convince themselves and others that magic is an art form, but I think that, like almost any endeavor, it can or cannot be an art depending upon how artfully it's being performed or executed. So, you know, there's one kind of painting that produces something worthy of hanging in the Louvre, and there's another kind of painting that's good for the outside of your house. And there's also some people who know how to paint your house in a way that's artful. So as much as, you know, the art is something that represents the expression of the artist.
The goal of art is to produce a feelingful response. If the person doesn't feel, there is no art. I mean, everything else. And what an artist does is they manipulate symbols within their media, and they produce art. Now, I can look at a spread of a Playboy or a Hustler, and I can get a feeling, but that feeling is purely physical. It's purely related to the thing. That's not what art is. Art transcends. So if I see a nude by Aristide Malloy, whose a name I can't pronounce, but you know, that's about more. There's sensuality, there's romance, there's color, there's shades, there's form, there's simplicity. This moves people. Magic is inherently pornography because it's so easy to get a wow or a ah. That's the lowest form, and all magicians care about is reactions. It's about how you make people feel. And if it's just the wow, you're a pornographer. You're a magic pornographer. And that's what most magic is. Very, very few times does magic transcend beyond the immediacy of the moment and make people really, really feel deeply.
The one thing that differentiates an art from a craft is the fact that art actually says something.
I know some magicians that are quite artful and who I would consider artists, but I think at large, and it's not a negative thing, that a lot of people who practice magic that they've seen someone else perform, or they've learned from a book, or they've learned from another person, them performing it, just the act of doing it, does not necessarily make it art or them artists.
Well, take it to the next level. I mean, there's doing tricks from your Uncle Joe, watching, you know, and then there's guys who take it seriously and work on a trick for 3 years before they show it to anybody, you know, and they get everything down, the looks, the timing, the lighting, the move, everything, you know, and I don't know, I just think that makes it art, you know, when it's, I don't know, when, you know it's art when you see it, I don't know what it is, but I know what I like, you know, and I know when I see something, even magic, you know, I've been in magic a long time, but when I see something, I know if it's art or not.
All arts are pretty much alike. They consist of the same thing, searching for your own voice, trying to say something in a different way. Like Matisse used to say that the most difficult thing to paint is a rose, because every person have done it. How can you paint a rose again and give it your own voice? So I think, yes, all the arts are somehow correlate, and there's a lot of analogies between all arts.
I think cooking is very similar to magic in a lot of ways, because you can do it at a very basic level, like my mother, who cooked just to get food on the table to eat and wasn't really concerned with any of the aesthetics, or, you know, she wanted it to taste good, but wasn't willing to go to a lot of effort to make it taste special or especially good, which I think is like most magic that you see, you know, in the world of magicians. Like everything else, mediocrity is at the top of the bell curve. And those magicians, you know, I don't want to be too critical, because I like guys that are just interested in magic and like magic, but it's not a driving passion for them or an art for them. And I can liken that to people who cook just to put food on the table. And, you know, it's good, it's fine, but they're never going to be anything more than that. One of the things that's interesting about magic is it encompasses all of the things that we think about in other performance arts individually. So the magician is the director and the choreographer and the writer and wearing all of the hats.
One of the greatest stage performers I ever saw was artistic and also got great laughs, and that's what made it commercial, was Cardini, you know, just a brilliant stage performer who took magic to such a high level on stage that he worked all the finest theaters in the world. Certainly, Dave Vernon showed that it was an art, and his magic was so artistic, and my goodness, I remember the first time I saw Vernon, it was just like watching Merlin. I was watching real magic. And anytime I find myself watching real magicians, Ricciardi as an illusionist, I just reduced me to an 8-year-old kid watching his first magician because it was real magic he was developing on stage.
There's a great magician in Paris named Xavier Mortimer. And this guy does real magic, man. He uses music and magic and mime and projections, these shadow projections. And there are moments when actually nothing happens, but it produces a profound feeling of magic in the people. The Ricky Jay show, you leave and you feel scholarship. You feel the dynamism of someone who has worked and studied all of their life. You feel history. You feel that you participated in a moment of history. You know, and Ricky does tricks that we all do, but he gives it something.
You see magicians trying to force meaning into their tricks by telling about their grandpas and doing all those things like, oh, and then there was fire, and they open a book and there's fire coming out of it. And it's actually furthering them from becoming an artist that has something to say. Maybe I'm showing you a card trick where you just pick a card, put it back and find it, the most boring plot in the world, but I'm able to put emotions on top of that, a layer of emotion. It's by pacing it, the way I talk, the way I deliver it, and I think that could be done, for sure.
I also think filmmaking is another thing that has very, not only direct lineage with magic, but really the approach of filmmakers in the way they tell stories and the way they think about visual imagery. I think that's a very, very close analogy to magic.
Definitely, I think it's the granddaddy of all arts. This is where a lot of the things that we consider art, like drawing and such, almost stem from. You know, when you have the ancient shamans drawing in caves, trying to depict the end of the world, well, it's magic.
At one time, we held a lot of power until they caught a guy switching bricks at the last second, a gold one for a real one, you know. But till then, we were held in pretty high esteem. Now we've had to turn it into an art form instead of a religious form.
I think an artist makes you see something differently by what they do. Sometimes it's the world around you, and sometimes it's a trick. And the problem is when it's so easy to boo! Boo is a feeling, but it's not horror. Horror and boo are two different things. And magicians are hung up on the boo and they never think about anything deeper.
The trick is art. I don't know if the trick is art, but your person, the magician is an artist. If the magician is an artist, what I do is art, of course.
It is an art form, and I think it's one of the great visual arts. And it's an art that can only be best, is best viewed, you know. It's not even great on television. It's best as a live art performance piece.